Good afternoon, everyone. Sam Wagar here. Um, Today's video is actually a repeat performance of a conversation on theurgy. The first video had sound recording issues, which I hope I've solved in this case. Um, Theurgy is speaking with your goddess or god. It's not like prayer where you say say something, where you appeal to a power that may or may not be listening to you. It's more of a direct communication. It involves a variety of trance or ecstatic experiences that are intended to uh, directly connect the worshiper with the deity, either through um, speaking with them and hearing their voice back, or inspiration trance, or prophetic experiences where you know something that you have no rational way of knowing, or a sense of presence, or in the most intense form, straight up possession, where the goddess or god will take over your body, see through your eyes, speak through your mouth, and you may or may not be aware of what's happening until the experience is over with. Now, the way to learn theurgy is by doing it, by uh, focusing on uh, building a relationship with a goddess or god, or several goddesses and gods, with listening for the voice of the deity within, paying attention to those unusual experiences that you will have. Everyone has occasional unusual experiences of connection with the divine. Most of us ignore them and go on with our lives. But if you pay attention to them, you can build on a foundation of these unusual experiences and make them more and more common and more useful to you in your spiritual life, and also, of course, in your day to day life, as you are informed more and more by these larger connections to a truth beyond your mundane lives. Now, um, I'm going to walk through some useful reading material, some books that discuss the stages of developing this kind of relationship, skills that you will wish to acquire, uh, and of course some cautions, things to be wary of, and to bear in mind when you are trying to build these kind of relationships. I'll begin with what I think is one of the best books published in the last few years, in general, on how people come to believe in how we can build these kinds of relationships. It's How God Becomes Real by Tanya Luhrmann, published by Princeton University Press in 2020. She talks about the what she sees as seven stages in developing a relationship that is nourishing and powerful with a goddess or god in a wide range of religious frameworks. She's done field work in several quite different religious frameworks, although she's best known, I will guess, for her work with Wiccans and also with evangelical Christians. She argues that we begin by not really having much of a belief in deities. That it takes effort, it takes time and work to listen to the world in a different way, to understand it in a different way, and to come to communicate with these forces outside of ourselves and inside of ourselves um, in new ways. And so there are a number of things that we have to learn. Talent and training, understanding how our minds work, um, looking for and evaluating evidence of the existence of deities. Um, so, to begin with, we need stories, stories that will tell us about gods and spirits and make them more real to us. The great myths, the stories found in sacred texts like the Christian Bible, for example. Um, People who may have different amounts of talent as well. Some may find it very easily to be absorbed in these stories, to go into states of light trance, and so on. So it will come more easily to them, although these are capacities that the great majority of human beings have. Um, the way we think about deities, if we think of ourselves as being completely separate from them, it'll be difficult for us to communicate with them. They are wholly other. Um, if we pay attention to those occasional moments where we have um, an, an unusual sense of clarity or a perspective broader than our day-to-day perspective. If we can see those moments and take them seriously and work on them, that's good. Um, by by engaging in regular practices, regular prayer practices in particular, reaching out to and attempting to connect with our chosen deities, and then they will hear us and communicate back with us. And finally, we create relationships with gods and spirits. It's not a question of putting in a prayer coin and automatically getting whatever you want. It's a question of developing a relationship based on respect and an ongoing relationship with the gods. That's how we develop it. Very good book. I think it's really, if you're interested in this topic, or if you're interested in religion and as a leader or an engaged layperson, it really is an essential read. This one, my own book, The Uses of Ecstasy, Ritual and Practical Mysticism in Wicca, 2012, Obscure Pagan Press. Um, this is a very nuts and bolts book centered in the Wiccan tradition. I deal with uh, drawing down the moon and sun, which are rituals of ultimately of ecstatic possession trance. I deal with the Great Rite, which is a ritual of sexual magic, and it's all nuts and bolts. You start here, you work through this process, you work through this process, and eventually, if you are lucky, talented, and blessed by the gods, you will get here. Good book. Pick up a copy. It's sold by Amazon for next to nothing. Now, techniques. Techniques are important. Um, there are several very widespread techniques for inducing trance. And although trance is not all we're talking about, it certainly is part of getting this more direct connection to deity. One of the best and most widespread techniques is drumming. Mickey Hart's book, Drumming at the Edge of Magic, A Journey into the Spirit of Percussion, is not specifically about inducing trance, but it's by the drummer for the Grateful Dead band, and it's an exceptionally good exploration in general of the meaning and the experience of percussion, of drumming, and how it affects mind, body, and spirit. And it's well written. It's very entertaining. I highly recommend it as a book on that technique. Now, excuse me. So, what does it mean to have a relationship with a goddess or god? It means that your life is shaped around the goddess or god. It's shaped around the relationship that you have with this divine being. Now, there's a couple of books that are exceptionally good descriptions of a life lived as the embodiment of a particular goddess or god are Pagan Meditations by Ginette Paris, in which she explores in some depth what a life lived as an embodiment of Aphrodite or Hestia or Artemis would be like. 1986 by Spring Publications. Her second book, Pagan Grace, deals with Dionysus, Hermes, and memory in daily life. 1990 Spring Publications. A life lived as the embodiment of divine forces is so deep and meaningful, complex and interesting. So much more so than just living your life as though it meant nothing. Developing the conversation of your holy guardian angel or the direct connection with a goddess or god, becoming a servitor of one of the Loa, enriches life. Enriches not just the life of the person who undertakes that work, but the lives of all those who come into contact with them. It's worth doing. Ginette Paris gives a poetic description of what that life might be like. And her books are very, very worth picking up. Another book in the post-Jungian depth psychology end of things, Facing the Gods. It's a collection edited by James Hillman, also by Spring Publications, 1980. This is rather more technical and hardcore psychology. The various contributors talk about Artemis as empowering girls, the Amazons and creative passion, Hephaestus, Hermes as the shape-shifting creative force, Athena, Dionysus. It's a very interesting, intellectually challenging, intellectually interesting guidebook, I guess, to some of the Greek gods. And again, if you wish to make a relationship with a deity, it's a good idea to know to whom you are talking and what kind of things they like and how you can make a relationship with you worth their while. How you can serve their interests as well as your own in the world. And by knowing the deities well, you come to be able to do this more effectively. Now, a nuts and bolts book. I'm going to give a couple of nuts and bolts books now. For the Love of the Gods, The History and Modern Practice of Theurgy by Brandy Williams from 2016 from Llewellyn. She begins by talking about theurgy in historical positions, in ancient Egypt, in Greece, in the Greco-Roman period, up until the late medieval period. And then she talks about techniques, what things you should know, who has explored these ideas in the modern day, Golden Dawn, the Thelema, the witchcraft movement. Um, Lessons from different teachers. Theurgy is a literate tradition. It's rooted in Egypt and also in India. Um, Theurgic rituals that exist, and then preparing for practice. A range of um, techniques and ideas, rituals. It's a very useful preparatory work. And then, last but not least, Possession, Depossession, and Divine Relationships by Diane L. Paxson, published in 2015 by a Wiser Red Wheel. Nuts and bolts, really solid nuts and bolts on how do you train yourself to be able to do possession trance, how you get yourself out of a possession trance once you're in it, what kind of cautions, how to be sure that whom you are talking to is actually who you want to be talking to. Just a wealth of specifics, nuts and bolts, detail. There's very little woo in this. It's not all about being, I'm so witchy and cool. It's all about I'm going to have this kind of relationship, and I'm going to responsibly fulfill my obligations to the gods as they are to me. So, I hope this recorded properly. I also hope that these books and these ideas and techniques, if you follow through on reading through some of these and in working with some of these techniques, are useful to you in your spiritual life. Blessed be everyone.